You're listening to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcast on new civil aviation safety rules.
Despite some high-profile disasters in the past 5 years, flying remains one of the safest forms of transport, especially in the EU. But the skies are getting crowded.
So to keep this excellent track record in the future, the EU has decided to update and adapt its aviation safety rules to the new challenges. Want to know more? Stay with us.
In the past decade, there have been fewer than 2 plane crashes per 10 million flights in the EU.
The figure rises to 15 in the Middle East and is approaching 40 in Africa, which makes the EU the safest area to fly in the world. And if you're not yet convinced, consider this.
According to the statistics, you have a 1 in 3 million chance of dying from food poisoning, so you're actually more likely to die from the airline's food than in a plane crash.
But as global air traffic is expected to double over the next 20 years and new forms of unmanned aircraft such as drones appear in European skies, can we automatically assume that flying in the EU will be as safe in the future as it is now?
Before we answer this question, let's have a quick look at the current situation.
EU civil aviation safety rules cover all key areas of aviation, including airworthiness, aircrew, aerodromes, air operations and the provision of air navigation services. They also define clear roles and responsibilities for the European Aviation Safety Agency and national authorities.
Big drones, weighing more than 150 kilograms, are also partially covered by EU law, but it's the smaller ones, which are widely available to consumers, that pose a problem, as they are subject to a myriad of fragmented national safety rules across the EU.
So to catch up with the new times and keep Europe's excellent safety performance, in December 2015, the European Commission proposed a revamp of the aviation safety rules.
So what are the changes? We'll tell you in a minute.
Well, the purpose of the new rules is to create the right conditions so that the EU has the capacity to handle the expected 50% increase in air traffic over the next 20 years and to ensure the EU aviation sector is prepared for tough global competition.
To ensure this, it introduces risk and performance-based rules to reduce red tape and encourage innovation. For example, sport and recreational aviation will be subject to simpler and cheaper approval procedures than those applicable for commercial air transport.
The new regulation extends the European Aviation Safety Agency's mandate to safety-related aspects of security, such as cybersecurity, and to the protection of the environment, and it establishes a framework for the pooling and sharing of aviation inspectors and other specialists to support member states in certification and oversight tasks.
In addition, the text provides new rules for the safe provision of ground handling services and closes a number of other safety gaps.
But perhaps one of the most important changes is that the reform includes the first ever EU-wide rules for civil drones that will help to allow all remotely piloted aircraft, big and small, to fly safely in European airspace.
The new rules on drones will set out basic principles to ensure safety, security, privacy and the protection of personal data, and they will also bring legal certainty to this rapidly expanding industry.
So, is everyone happy with the changes?
Well, mostly yes, but it's impossible to please everybody. So while most stakeholders welcomed the Commission's proposed changes, some wanted tougher rules for drones to share European airspace, others wanted to reduce obligations in areas such as ground handling, cabin crew and air traffic management.
At first, the European Parliament wanted to increase the Aviation Safety Agency's responsibilities to cover the safety aspects of security measures and commercial space transport, as well as drones.
MEPs also called for a comprehensive safety management system to be set up and for a stronger role for the agency on the international scene, with a budget matching its new responsibilities.
In the end, the Commission took most of these points, except for entrusting the agency with the safety aspects of commercial space transport. Member States were also broadly supportive of new EU rules on drones, as well as making rules proportionate and dependent on the risk.
They also agreed on the need to strengthen cooperation on security matters related to civil aviation, such as cybersecurity and flights over conflict zones. However, most member states were not keen on touching the financing of the agency and did not support the creation of a new oversight mechanism, which would have allowed the agency to take over certain oversight tasks from national authorities.
So when will the new rules become law?
Well, the Parliament's Transport Committee rubber-stamped the deal in January 2018, and now it needs to be endorsed by all MEPs meeting in plenary session and the Council, so it shouldn't be long before the new rules come into force.
You're listening to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.